All right, so here we go with the religion chapter. So this is part of a cultural unit, and so we've already kind of broken down our discussions on language and just culture as a whole. So now we're expanding that into the idea of religion. And so, if we're in classes, what we do first is, what is the definition of religion? And so I'm just going to kind of share with you kind of stuff that I've found and created over the years. So, the definition out of the Oxford English Dictionary of religion is the belief and worship of a superhuman controlling power, especially a personal god or gods, emphasis on the fact that there could be more than one. Right. I've also added in this little piece here too. So rituals and practices in regards to how to believe and worship in a superhuman being, as well as how we regulate ourselves. So I think that's a big part of culture in terms of the way that we dress, the way that we eat, and not just necessarily the belief system itself, but also the way we carry ourselves, the way we see the world, the way we treat other people, and how religion can impact that. Now, obviously, that doesn't factor in for every person because a lot of people are unaffiliated with certain religions or don't necessarily believe or in a certain set of beliefs or a god or gods. And so that's also really important to understand as well. So it's important to see human geography, why we study religion, see how it connects to physical environments, because the physical landscape is really important, especially to almost every religion on the planet, in terms of not only just worship sites, but also to the histories of the peoples, relations between the two groups, or between multiple different religious groups, and seeing how it shapes cultural perspectives and how we understand one another in terms of clothing, food, music, interactions with the land, with other people. Again, it's kind of all encompassing within that. All right. So, just a few definitions we're going to go over here. So, universalizing religions, a religion that attempts to appeal to all people and to be global. So, this is, ideas of religions that try to essentially convert people into their different faiths. So, that would include Christianity, Islam, Buddhism. They're trying to bring in more members, be a universal religion, appealing to people beyond just the areas that they came from, right? So, beliefs and traditions are not always related to hearths, but can be related to them in terms of, the way people dress, in terms of Islam, even though it's a universalizing religion, in terms of Muslim wearing the burqas. Pilgrimages and where people are traveling and types of food that people eat can be very much connected to the hearths, but not always, because in Christianity, Christians typically, will wear certain types of clothing. Food's not really all that restrictive for the most part. So again, that's kind of an example of where traditions can be related to the hearths, but not always. Ethnic religions are different. They are a religion with a relatively concentrated spatial distribution, and predominantly this is kind of the idea of more like a folk religion, where in terms of it's changed very little over the time, and its peoples haven't really gone out to add in more people. Right? So most likely the principles and traditions are based on that physical characteristic, on the physical environment of the location that its followers either lived in or started in. So this would be Judaism, Hinduism, animist religions in Africa and other parts of the globe, the American Indian belief systems here in the United States, and also, throughout the rest of the Americas also fit those as well. The Maori in New Zealand, the Aborigines in Australia, playing in with those. All right, a few other definitions here. Atheism, or just to be clear on the definitions here, atheism is a belief that a god or gods do not exist. Agnostic is believing that nothing can be known or unknown about believe that nothing can be completely known about whether a god or gods do exist. So it's kind of, I'm not really quite sure, kind of feeling. All right, and then we also have these two definitions here. Monotheism, so again, going back to the idea of mono versus polylingual or multilingual. So the same thing, mono being one. Monotheism, belief that in the existence of only one God. Polytheism, being multi with poly, belief in existence and worship of more than one God. So that's two and or way more. All right, depending again on certain people's beliefs. And then there's the idea of unaffiliated, which means you have a religious belief or spiritual belief, but you're not necessarily affiliated with a certain religion or religious group. Right. So here is a very big map with a bunch of charts in terms of believers as a percentage of the global population, where those are. All right, so you get a very wide swath of different types of religion, especially within Christianity. You can see all of that. You can see Judaism, Buddhism, Islam in there, and so we'll break this down. You can kind of see it, believers by region, in the millions. So again, the most you're seeing in terms of those dark colors means they're following a certain particular faith or a subset of that faith. All right, and then globally, we'll talk about this as well. You can kind of see the specific breakdowns of not just religions, but religious subgroups as well. Right. So here's kind of our more global perspective. All right, and later on, when you kind of learn more about this stuff, you can kind of go back and revisit it. But yeah, so if you look globally at the percentages of people, and this is based on stuff from 2005, so the book obviously has a more updated version of this because 15 years is a long time to look at it. So about 1/3 of the people on the planet are considered Christian, and that encompasses a lot of different groups. So that's Catholics, Protestants, Evangelicals, Eastern Orthodox, Anglican, Presbyterian, Church of Latter-day Saints, Jehovah's Witnesses, Quakers. So if you consider yourself like a Baptist or a Lutheran, that fits in here. All right. Islam being one of the other really, really big ones, okay, is 21% of the world. So about 1 in every 5 people. And they're broken down into two distinct categories that we'll refer back to at a different time, Sunni and Shia or Shiite. Okay, Hinduism being the largest ethnic religion at 14%. Buddhism, been one of our global religions there, 6%. Sikhism, Judaism, very, very tiny sliver. That's my religion right there. Primal and indigenous ones, traditional Chinese ones, so that'd be like Taoism or Confucianism. And then people that are considered non-religious. So again, atheists, agnostics, unaffiliated would consider themselves kind of being a part of that. And this is actually a very growing number, by the way, both in the United States and globally, the non-religious. But Islam is also growing as well, right? So looking at it in terms of the United States, and again, we'll refer back and we'll break a lot of this stuff down and revisit it. So largest participating religious group by county, all right? And so you get a very large swath of different religious groups here inside the United States. And so, yeah, so right here you have this very large group here in the South that is kind of part of the Southern Baptist belief. All right, up here in the northern part of the United States, you have essentially the ELCA, also known as the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America or of America. That is predominantly big in terms of especially the colleges here in Minnesota and in the Midwest. So schools like I know Augsburg, where I went, is an ELCA school. I think Wartburg is ELCA. Luther College, they fit under that category, despite the fact that they're also very diverse as well. At least Augsburg is in terms of the diversity. So not necessarily always adhering to the religion, but having strong ties to that. Catholics, okay, are the purple color. You can see Catholics have a very big spread throughout all of the United States. And again, we'll break that down for the reasons why. This gray area here is predominantly, these are your Church of Latter-day Saints, your Mormons. And so, yeah, you can kind of see that breaking through. And then you get other various types inside there as well. A more interesting thing to look at, though, however, is, if you look at the other category indicated, 34 groups that are with less than 10 counties each. So that could, again, apply to other different religions. That could apply to, other groups such, again, with the indigenous populations within Islam, Buddhism, all those. But to look at it more interestingly by state in the United States, is the second largest religion by state, and I'll move the camera off myself there, or move that a little bit. So you have, in the pink is Judaism. This is 2010. I'm still always shocked by this, and I think that number in the 2020 census, if not by the 2030 census, would be leaning more towards Islam in the state. Buddhism out here in the West, right, which would make sense based on the fact that, Buddhism is a very big religion inside of Eastern Asia, so think about China, Japan, Korea, Vietnam. So it makes sense that would be fairly large in terms of where their populations are. Islam is actually all of these places in the green, so you can think about that, and you're like, surprised about North and South Dakota. Well, again, if you don't have a whole lot of diversity, whatever that largest diverse group is, it's probably going to take the cake on that. And then we also have Hinduism, all right, based in both Arizona and the state of Delaware. And then, the Baha'i faith, which we'll break down if you've never heard of the Baha'i faith before, very large in South Carolina. So there you go. There's another distinctive difference about what the second largest religion, not necessarily largest Christian group, because that would probably dominate every single one of these, but distinct religion away from Christianity inside. So in terms of the United States, more of a breakdown here of the religions inside the U.S. Okay, about 51% are considered that Protestant Christianity. That's not the Catholic faith. again, there are other Christian groups that fit in there again, so that would also fit. Mormons would be part of that 3.3%. At least that's how I would see it. I don't know if that fits into the Protestant category here. So again, if you're Catholic, that's 1 in every 4 Americans. Protestant, 1 in every 2. Again, that's your Baptists, your Methodists, Lutherans, Presbyterians, ELCA. Okay, Jewish, very small. Islam, I'm still surprised that Judaism is actually holding off Islam at that point. But this is 2013. That might change. I mean, 1.7% is a big thing to jump. Hinduism, you can kind of see that. And then again, there's that 16%, which is fairly similar to this global statistic of that non-religious group. All right, so that's pretty interesting to see that makes up. In terms of representatives, this I was able to find based on the 2019 Congress, not the 2021 coming up very, very shortly. But you can kind of see, look at it in terms of percentages of actual religion. All right, so the actual number of people, and you can again break this up. It does it based on both religion and by party in both the House and the Senate. So you can kind of see that 233 members of the Senate. That's about 1/2, right? Because you have 435 members of the Senate. All right, so it's actually over half are again that Protestant percentage. Okay, majority of them being Republican, but a fairly large amount being Democrat. Then you have Catholics, making up 32%, most of them again being Democrat, but a very large number of Catholics who are Republican. Jews, 26 representatives, most of them being Democrat, a few, in this case, I guess only 2 as of 2019. Don't know if that shifts anything in the 2021. Mormons, again, in these ones, and again, you kind of look at the state by where the Mormons are, that would predominantly be these people over here. Fitting in those states. Then your other groups in here. So Islam has 3. I'm not sure what DK/RF stands for. But yeah, 1 Buddhist, 1 Hindu, 2 Unitarian. And then you can kind of see that breakdown here again within the Senate. So you kind of see that. One thing to see is that the GOP, the Republican Party, playing in with a little bit of politics, is almost all Christian. So again, this actually breaks it down by party, the numbers. So here we have all of our Christians, all the different Christian denominations here, and then 2 Jewish members of the House, and that's it. Those are the only 2. So yes, that DKRF is probably like don't know, refuse, other face, unaffiliated. Probably fits in that. But the only 2 Republicans in Congress who are not Christian are 2 Jewish people, at least as of 2019. So I think that's an interesting thing to consider, is that the Democratic Party made up more diversity in terms of religion than the Republican, right? And then there's your change in the religious makeup of Congress, all right? That Judaism has stayed fairly stable since the last here's 1960s, and then I guess we jump from the 80s and through the 80s. Yeah, it jumps up in the numbers, more recent stuff. But yeah, kind of a growing number, especially in terms of that Islamic group. The Muslim members of Congress, still only 3, but that number, is getting, I think, a little bit larger now in 2021. This was 2013, but it was a good way to kind of see which districts were represented by which groups, 8 years ago. So yeah. And then the Minnesota religious composition, so breaking down religion here in Minnesota based on 2015 stuff. So again, understanding the peoples that are here. So about 3 out of every 4 people in Minnesota are considered a Christian. Again, a very large percentage of that being some sort of Protestant. Okay, another 1/5 or so, 1/4 Catholic. Again, Jews and Muslims being about 1% each. So yeah, and then there's that unaffiliated, get a little bit higher, not the 16%, but 20% within that. And then one thing to kind of pay attention to help you understand this stuff is world religion chart with the symbols of the major religions, the number of followers, the principal figures that we'll talk about in the next one, sacred writings, major beliefs, where it began, where they go to worship and the day of worship, and then other big things within each faith. So we don't have necessarily time to go over this. This is something to, again, look back at, keep in mind, because, again, it helps to understand more about, the hearths and the diffusion, and then more of the important stuff that we'll bring back to in the next video.